Goodness gracious, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth. Greg, I like how your head was nodding along with each one because you know how this intro goes at this point. Welcome to a special. I hate saying that
Tyler
because I
Bass
feel like,
game-winning field goal.
right? Jake Fromm QB1 episode of Disguise Coverage. I hate saying special for things because I feel like it makes every other thing seem not special or bad. It's like when someone tells you like you ask someone a question, they're like, well, Anthony, to be honest, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, why did you say to be honest? Have you been lying to me for every other statement
And
that
when
you have?
everyone's super, no one is.
That's exactly right. But this is a special episode of Disguise Coverage where we're doing the post-game show, usually associated with the Cover One Buffalo show with Greg and Aaron, but we did some reshuffling this week for a variety of things going on. And here we are, post-game show for the Bills-Lions preseason game. My initial question to you, Greg, did you know that there was a Bills game today?
I was aware. I did know. I actually took our third co-host of the Cover One Fantasy Show, Richard Haynes, out for his birthday today. It was his birthday. We went golfing. He had the round of his life. It was fantastic.
Nice.
And we were both talking about how fun it was that there was a game tonight. And we'll talk about all the takeaways, but mostly there was a football game tonight, and that's fun. And it was an exciting night to be able to feel normal. It was great.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Exciting night to feel normal. And we got a lot of takeaways, a lot of thoughts, analysis, breakdowns, all that stuff. Greg and I are going to work our way through the defense first. We're going to go layer by layer, and then we're going to go over to the offense. But as we always do here on Cover One and Disguise Coverage, any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, philosophies, ideologies, maxim theorems, any of that stuff, throw it into the chat. Somebody you noticed that you wanted our takes on, some whether bad or good, questions, anything, follow up on our stuff. We love the engagement and the interaction at Cover One and on Disguise Coverage. And Greg and I are very excited. And we're also excited about sponsorship stuff that we got going on with Cover One. Greg, I know, you're a regular old hat at this when it comes to everything with Underdog Fantasy. Why don't you let the people know about the partnership we got going on? I mean, they should know at this point because it's fantastic and we've been talking about it for quite a long time. But what do we got going on with Underdog Fantasy?
Yeah, we have a partnership with Underdog Fantasy. If you download the app and use promo code COVER1, you get $25 free when you make a $10 deposit, and you can come do fantasy drafts with us. And literally right now, I am up in a draft right this second and live on the air. I'm going to make a pick, and I am going to draft my backup wide receiver, someone that I think is going to be a flyer. And I like slot receiver for the Washington football team, Adam Humphries, and he's going to be my 17th round pick. Estimated pick live on the air. So it's a lot of fun. You can come out, you can have a lot of fun with getting ready for your fantasy drafts and do it for, in a cheap and competitive way, maybe win some money back. But check it out. Have a good time with it. We've really enjoyed it so far. They've been great partners. And then also our friends at Uncle Jumbo's are also having some fun with us as well. So some fun and exciting things coming up from them as well.
A lot of fun and exciting stuff when it comes to the partnerships with Cover One. And I think that's a great segue to, you mentioned a couple things. You mentioned fun, and this game was fun. You mentioned great partners, and you're a great partner. Hey. And so, I like to build natural segues that are also truthful. I mean, we are not really a great partner, so maybe that one's a bit of a lie. But I digress. We've done the intro. We've welcomed everyone. The chat is blowing up. The excitement is there. Everybody wants to know about how we can cut Josh Allen to save that money and promote Jake Fromm to QB1 because he's ready and raring to go. Oh, I like the comment already from Kendall. Face of the franchise. Tyler Bass. I actually wouldn't. You know what I liked? I liked the little tidbit from Cynthia Freeland, who's fantastic, by the way. If people are just getting accustomed to her.
What an awesome hire.
Awesome hire. Her work with NFL Network, she's very analytics based. It's great with fantasy football and just football in general. She's phenomenal. But I like the little tidbit of why Tyler Bass wears the eye black. I did not know that prior to tonight of why he wears it for his grandma. So that was really cool. I wouldn't mind him being the face of the franchise, that mean mug with that piece of eye black. But again, I digress. Let us get right into the things here. Pulling up the banner there on the bottom. So Greg, We're going to get into the defense in a minute, but if you had one overarching thought, or it could be a person, it could be the team as in general, it could be one side or phase of the ball. If somebody asked you, how did the game go tonight? What's the first thing your brain goes to?
Literally, first thing is the Bills won and nobody got hurt. Those are the two things I care about. I know it's preseason. I know it doesn't matter. I still like to win. Like I can't turn that off in my brain. I joked about it. For anybody who's catching up, go check out my game thread. You see all my notes live. I use them on the show, and that's how I go through. And I even tweeted very late in there, my heart rate doesn't know that this is a preseason game. Yep. I literally felt myself with the anxiety in the moment being like, all right, come on, let's see if we can come back here. Like I can't turn that part of my brain off. I know it doesn't matter. I know it wasn't critical and doesn't actually count. But I like that we won. And obviously the biggest thing is no serious injuries. You saw a couple dings for Isaiah Hodgins, Antonio Williams. Both of them look fine. Didn't seem to be anything bad. Former Bill Evan Boehm for the Lions got rolled up on. You hate to see that. But obviously some more analytical takeaways we'll get into. But ultimately it's, hey, nobody got hurt and we won. That's fun.
It's funny you mentioned like not being able to turn it off for the preseason. Like when Bass did the squib kick at the end and it wasn't great, I literally was like, oh, and then I was like, why am I caring so much? Is this preseason? I was like, no, so forget that. Like I want the win. Like I'm not pleased right now. Yeah, that's a huge, I have to stop. Why? Because I saw a super chat. Friend of the show, John. Awesome. Yeah, John is phenomenal. Man retired down there in the Miami region, but diehard Bills Mafia. Huge supporter of Disguise coverage and Cover One. Thank you so much already, John, for the super chat donation and the very large Groot comment already with, I can't count how many O's there are, even with my glasses on, and then an exclamation point at the end. Yeah, he was, and you know what? That's a great job from John because we're going to start inside out. It's a great segue. Yeah. Let's jump right to it, to the defensive line. And I guess we can start with Mr. Gregory Rousseau. Greg, you know, you mentioned your game thread that you had going on. It's funny because you and I could not be more stark opposites when it comes to game day Twittering, where I am superstitious and refuse to do anything tweet, phone call, text during games. You are live chat, game thread extraordinaire, and you had a lot of stuff to say about Gregory Rousseau. And I got to cut it off because Richard has come through with the super chat. Thank you so much, Rich. He said, I'm starting it now. Ruse chance need to be a thing. I would also second that notion. Thank you very much, Rich, for the super chat. But yeah, Greg, you had a lot of thoughts on Gregory Rousseau, and Eric Turner did a really nice breakdown of some things that he and AJ Epinesa did. But first game action, live game action for the Bills' first round pick this year, someone who we understood the positional need, but I think a lot of us were surprised at the actual pick of Gregory Rousseau. And Paulie, I see your super chat, and I'm going to pull it up. This is fantastic. I can't even get through the thoughts. I'm going to do it right now because I like doing it. That's the rule here. When a super chat gets thrown in, you got to pull it up. Paulie mentioned, could it be that the game-winning drive was executed by skill players of which none will make the team? Yes. That's a very fair question, Paulie. That's a very fair question, and we're 1,000% going to get into that when we break down the offense. But again, I'm going to try this for the third time now. I just want more people to throw in the super chat so I can just never.
Please keep interrupting them. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it.
This is the greatest thing ever.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, it is awesome.
So Gregory Rousseau, people are a little taken back initially. I know I was. We recognized and I think you were as well. You know, we recognized the raw, untapped potential of Gregory Rousseau coming out of college, but between not having a ton of snaps on film, very young in his career and with his age and some other guys that were on the board, I think it took some people by surprise, but from all reports so far, a really tremendous training camp, and he really continued that positive momentum from camp into his first game action tonight.
Yeah, and there's a couple things. We'll get into the offensive line here in a bit, and one player in particular, that obviously some of the depth on the offensive line has created some questions of, hey, is the strong play we've seen from the defensive line just because the offensive line has the depth on the O-line hasn't looked good? Tonight soundly says no, that we obviously have some up-and-coming talent on the defensive line. I thought Rousseau looked fantastic. The fact that he got literally a sack on his very first drive in an NFL game, or, you know, it's a preseason game, but still, his very first NFL action, one of his first 3 snaps, he got a sack, is very encouraging. You're hearing all the comments here, Brian and others talking about F.A. Obata, and A.J. Epinesa played fantastic as well. You had Epinesa and Rousseau sandwich the quarterback at one point. Obata had several flash plays. I thought those three out of the front flashed the most to me. But in my notes, there was a nice fourth down stuff that was because of Harrison Phillips getting into the backfield. He did get washed out a couple times. I'll say that I don't know that Boogie Basham had a great game. I thought he was okay, and I don't really remember a ton else. There was one where Trayvon Hester kind of created a pressure that ended up being a Daryl Johnson sack. Daryl Johnson looked okay on a few. I thought he was maybe the next out of that group. But overall, those three, Obata, Rousseau, and Epinesa looking as good as they did was really, really encouraging. And I thought it was a great start.
Yeah, 1,000%. Man, I feel like I broke the rewind button on my remote during this.
I will say Ed Oliver had some nice plays as well. He didn't get as many snaps as the other guys. They took him out quicker, but he looked good as well.
Yeah, I was going to get into Oliver in a minute as well. The comments are spot on. Greg, you were spot on. I constantly found myself, rewinding to take a look at everything. Like I got especially because we were doing the post-game show tonight, but also just because I'm so interested in seeing live reps from these guys. I got very much into almost like a film breakdown of watching the game, to the point that my wife was like, "Can we go to the next play?" And I was like, "No." Like I just had Kevin to keep going back and see everything. And I mentioned it. I think I mentioned in the lead-in. Eric Turner posted a really good breakdown of that sandwich QB hit from Epinesa and Gregory Rousseau about how they each won differently. And to start with Rousseau, he did the things that we heard about all through camp, and he did it in live snaps. It was awesome that he got to do it against a first-team tackle in Penny Sewell, who was a high draft pick and one of the best prospects coming out for this draft. We saw Rousseau use his length. We saw him take proper angles. We saw Eric nailed it. Well, I don't even know why I even started speaking. Got another super chat. Thank you so much, dad of a Bills fan. He said, because Greg's so damn handsome. Accurate. Also, Davis Webb could be QB2.
Hold that. Let's put a pin in that. That's an interesting discussion when it comes time for offense.
You're talking about your handsomeness, of course, right?
Clearly.
Makes sense. But yeah, sticking with the D there, and I was really impressed with Rousseau so far. His get off, his length, his ability to play with leverage and understand angles. He wasn't winning with any type of like sophistication or pass rush moves or plan. He was just playing good football, like instinctually doing things that led to positive outcomes for the defense. And then you juxtapose that with AJ Epinesa, who was winning with a lot of the things that you and I saw and mentioned and tweeted. I don't even know why I'm even doing it. Thank you so much, John, for the super chat. Commenting here that Spencer Brown is a down block pancake machine. 99 got him twice upfield, but 79 is going to like film review tomorrow. He is nasty as a New York City rat. I will say he had a couple nasty blocks and pancakes.
Finished
but he also
really well.
Very true, but he got beat around the edge.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the offensive line. His run game film is going to be more enjoyable than his pass game film.
Very true. And you see that athleticism translating already, which is great. So you hope, again, ball of clay that can be molded, add some refinement. Yeah. But Rousseau looked great. Epinesa, as I started to get into, he was doing a lot of the things that you and I saw when we went to the open practice, the first open practice. Good hand technique, taking proper angles, attacking shoulders, getting around the edge. He, as Eric mentioned in his breakdown video of when he posted that sandwich hit, the transformation that AJ Epinesa has gone through with his body, coming from a bigger, bulkier guy at Iowa that was like, a guy that you can kick down inside and maybe play some defensive tackle and do. Justin did this on purpose. That's hilarious. Well done. Paid interruption. That is all. Continue. Well done.
That is really done. That is really good.
That's hilarious. Really well done. Well played. That's. There's nowhere to go but down from here, folks. That's it. Have a good night. We're ending the show on that note. Yeah, Epinesa, his body transformation. I mentioned it multiple times. For the guy came into a crazy COVID off season, COVID regular season, all these types of things, and he physically transformed his body. We saw him start to build some momentum towards the end of the year. Carried it in by all accounts, and at live game reps, looked strong. Good hand technique, using that push pull that he likes to do. His hand technique was really honestly the biggest thing for me. His ability to just swipe hands right away and then turn the swipe into a move and get underneath and get around the edge. Really strong play from AJ Epinesa. And then, yeah, you mentioned F.A. Obata. F.A. Obata, the comment I pulled up earlier was that Obata is a bull. I don't know if I saw a snap where he lost. He was beating tackles. He was beating the tight end blocks. He was beating chips. He was beating the running back. They kicked him inside on a couple plays, and he had some nice strength at the point of attack with Harrison Phillips on a couple of run plays for the Lions. So, as advertised from F.A. Obata, all the things that we had hoped and heard that he would be, I thought he really showed up big time. I was tremendously, from an edge perspective, AJ Epinesa, Greg Rousseau, F.A. Obata, very promising, very great.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned the back.
And I'll add in a follower that it's always great to interact with, Dominic, labeled it the Lambo package when it was Rousseau, Obata, Basham, and Epinesa, the four of them out there at once during the 2-minute drill. He called it the Lambo package. I kind of like that. The Giants used to call it their NASCAR package, but I thought that was pretty.
Lambo is way sexier. Let's do it. An awesome comment there from Mike. $5 is a bargain for content like this. Appreciate you, Mike. Now we can cut Bobby Hart. Greg is a better offensive tackle. Yeah.
We're going to get to that.
We are 1,000% going to get into the man, myth, the legend that is Bobby Hart. But yeah, those three crushed it. You mentioned Basham. You know what's funny? After we left that open practice, and I was thinking on things the rest of the day, and because we had a ton of people tweeting at us, asking questions, different things, I thought to myself, holy crap, granted I wasn't looking for him, but I wasn't looking for several players that I just constantly noticed in the open practice. I left that open practice thinking oh man, I didn't notice Basham at all. And I was like, but he's a rookie. We'll see what happens. I know he had that pick six in camp, but we really haven't heard a lot other than that. I don't want to be too negative for him right away, but I came away decently unimpressed with him. I thought he played high a lot of the times. He held the point of attack well, so it looked like he was, better in run support than he was pass rush. But he also looked at times I don't know if it was, and I saw this with his film at Wake Forest, but he played a ton of snaps, so I thought, okay, maybe that's why he got gassed. He seemed like he was either gassed a lot or just didn't have a lot of get off or a lot of energy. He seemed a bit lackadaisical at times. Combine that with playing high, and as people are already making the jokes, he's just mashing the circle button, the spin nonstop.
And sometimes early on, it was way too much.
Correct.
He tried to mix it up a little bit later, but obviously the initial takes that he was the more pro-ready player and that Rousseau was going to take more time to develop, that's clearly a little bit off. So I'm not down on him. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I still think he has a good chance to contribute and rotate. I won't be shocked if maybe there's some early AJ Epinesa type stuff, or maybe some game day inactive scratches early on. But I'm not worried about it longer term planning for that. But obviously with the play of Epinesa, Rousseau, and Obata, and then you mix back in Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison, we're just fine.
1,000%. And I wanted to get to this question from Spin, who asked, did any of the defensive ends get snaps on the inside at all, or were they strictly playing on the ends? Obata kicked inside multiple times. Yeah. Basham kicked in multiple times. I don't believe Rousseau or Epinesa.
I did not see any reps from Epinesa or Rousseau inside, but I'll go back and watch again.
Yeah, I will be watching again as well. But I think I'm pretty sure we're both accurate on that. And yeah, Obata definitely kicked in. Basham kicked in a lot. So yeah, we'll see what comes from Basham. Obviously not as exciting as how great the other three were that we mentioned. And again, to your point, then we get into the regular season. If you're mixing that with what's also exciting with this is Jerry Hughes, despite the fact that some people like to claim that he had a terrible year last year, is still a very effective player and a very effective pass rusher. And if we are getting production from the younger guys to allow Jerry Hughes to stay fresher or Mario Addison to stay fresher, and we've got a solid 5 or 6 man rotation going on at the edge, very exciting. We've talked about the importance of that. But yeah, just coming away from this game really strong from those three. And then if we kick it to the inside, I thought Harrison Phillips had a really, really great game. I know Rousseau's first sack on that first drive is the thing that'll get the play, but Harrison Phillips drove his man back into Jared Goff. He hit him with the push-pull, turned it into a swim that forced Goff to kind of stay and hesitate, which led to Rousseau getting the sack. Phillips stood very strong at the point of attack multiple times. Combined with, the physical transformation that he went through as well, I'm very excited for what we saw from Harrison Phillips tonight.
Yeah, I saw several flash plays. I saw one or two where he let himself get washed out. A couple of those short yardage conversions, but he also had the run stop on the fourth down. That's all you can ask for from a defensive tackle. So I thought a positive overall game. I don't know that I'd put it on par with the other three.
No.
But I thought that he was a net positive, and it was a notch in his favor towards making this roster.
Oh, for sure. And especially on a night where Vernon Butler was inactive due to a concussion. And again, we're looking at Phillips. He played so many snaps, but ideally, knock on wood, Phillips at best is seeing third string, technically defensive tackle reps behind Star Lotulelei and Ed Oliver. So knowing that you could have that type of production in your holster coming in as that third guy, he looked really, really good. And I saw a couple comments. Greg, you touched on Ed Oliver. Some people in the comments said that Oliver had a bad game. I thought he had a good game. He split some double teams. He had that really nice play that drew the holding call on Frank Ragnow where he split the double team, got his hands up, got a piece. That's another thing I wanted to mention too. The Lions have a good line. I know Sewell is a rookie. Frank Ragnow is a very good center. Yeah. Taylor Decker, very strong. Like, that's who Epinesa and Rousseau and Oliver were beating very good NFL players. Sewell, I know, is a rookie, but he's highly projected. Ragnow and Decker are very legit. Check their contracts that they signed, which are very legit.
Enormous.
They're quite big. Like, they are men. They are huge guys. And so the fact that we were getting pressure and consistently causing chaos in the backfield against a good offensive line, really tremendous to see. I also liked you also mentioned him as well. I like Trayvon Hester. I thought he made a lot of nice plays. He had a couple sprints down the line of scrimmage to make some plays towards the sideline. He had a couple nice run fits. He had a couple nice push-pull and some swim moves. Somebody that I don't want to throw him into that conversation again. It's one game, but all the talk has been about like Phillips and Zimmer. Zimmer did play, but I didn't notice
not a lot of
snaps
from him. Not a lot of snaps.
Very limited.
When I go back and rewatch again, I'm going to try to do a little bit more of a snap count. He did not get a ton of reps, which in my mind is a positive for him. The guys that they got out of there early speak well to where they see them. I did not see a lot of reps for Zimmer. He did not register in the box score, but he was on the field. I just don't think he got a lot of playing time.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely saw him, but not a ton of snaps. I think the majority of Harrison Phillips played a lot, and if we're looking at that interior comment there from Michael, Wade, sacks aren't the be-all and end-all. Shocking. It's crazy. It's like there's other things that can be done, or there's, context that needs to be added. Yeah, very encouraging start from Ed Oliver. I would say from the defensive line as a whole, a good performance. We even saw Bryant make a couple plays. Strong performance from the defensive line, highlighted by the guys we've already touched on.
Make sure you guys are checking this out. Rob Quinn already has takeaway articles out there. It's fantastic. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Already fantastic with items for good play from Cody Ford, Greg Rousseau, 5 biggest takeaways from the game already. Just on the ball. Awesome analysis already.
It's almost like Cover 1 is fantastic with Bills coverage and NFL coverage.
It's almost like that. It's almost like that.
It's almost like we plan that and like work hard at it. Or
I'll say as we move to the second level, I thought there was some solid play. Maybe Andre Smith stuck out the most to me from a linebacker standpoint. Gills Harris, had a couple plays here or there. I don't know that I thought it was an amazing game from the linebackers, but I thought it was solid. I didn't have a ton, as I went back kind of preparing here. I thought Medikevich had a couple decent plays that I noticed early on, which is nice because he's obviously ideally just a special teams guy, and if he has any functional contribution from a linebacker standpoint, that's good. But I thought out of anybody that kind of gave themselves I always do it as, did you help your odds or did you hurt your odds of making the roster? I would say Andre Smith probably gave himself a little +1 in his chances of making the roster, and that's who John's talking about here. Andre Smith Jr. is number 59. I thought he flashed several times.
1,000%. had a really nice athletic interception that got called back because of the roughing the passer.
So many penalties. So many
So many
penalties.
penalties. But he was really all over the place. A guy who, and I wish I remember who said it. Someone who, I think it was Sal Capaccio on GR one of the mornings that I was heading into work. And, got you. Thank you, Cal, for the super chat and the comment. You guys are going way too long without
It
an
really
interruption.
was an unacceptable streak.
Good to see a new cover one season started off right. Thank you so much for the super chat and very well played. Yeah, we have gone too long without an interruption. Thank you. I believe it was Sal on one of the mornings on GR talked about a dark horse for him that, has been making noise and could make the team. And it was Andre Smith. This was like maybe last week or the week before.
Yes.
And really good game from him. Solid in pass coverage. I don't think he missed a tackle. He was flying all over the field. Looked really good. I think he was Tyrell Dodson also. Look, granted, his snaps were more limited. He played in the beginning, but I thought Dodson flashed, played with a lot of energy, but then he was out. I think he was the second best looking linebacker after Smith, just because Smith's body of work and volume was so much bigger. And then, to your point, we saw a flash from Giles Harris. We saw some flashes from Tyrell Adams. We also saw some missed tackles from Tyrell Adams. Giles Harris also had that really nice fill, I think on the third down or the fourth down, where he just met the center in the hole and held strong and allowed the Bills to get the stop. Also some nice special teams work. So enough play from the linebackers to make us feel like, again, we do not want Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano missing any snaps ever. Yeah. But God forbid it doesn't seem as dire or end all be all like it did last year, where it was like, well, they're out, so we're screwed. Also, we're not even throwing AJ Klein into that mix, who's shown that he can carve out a niche for himself. Sure. So
there was a couple plays late with some missed tackles here or there that weren't ideal, but I thought overall a solid one, for the front seven.
Solid from the front seven, especially from the defensive line. Now moving into the secondary, you want to start with the corners, or you want to start with the safeties?
Let's start with the safeties. I thought both Josh Thomas and Damar Hamlin played pretty well. I obviously several flashes there. Jaquan Johnson got some run early, not a ton that was out there, and then Hamlin got a lot of run later. And obviously Josh Thomas had a lot early on. I don't think Tariq Thompson got a ton of run late in the game. I didn't notice a lot from him, but overall, I thought that Josh Thomas and Damar Hamlin both had positive games that help their chances. And a guy like Josh Thomas is going to be right there with Andre Smith, with guys like that fighting for one of those last roster spots. And if they can contribute on special teams, we'll kind of go from that standpoint, with helping themselves. I thought Josh Thomas gave himself a leg up. I think that Damar Hamlin already has pretty good chance to make the team. But I thought they both helped themselves.
For sure. I think coming into the year, the thought was, without seeing any snaps, would be like, okay, we got Hyde and Poyer, and then, the next guys up 3 and 4 would be some combo of Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson. Yeah. But Thomas has made things very interesting. I thought he looked good, especially around the line of scrimmage. I liked what Damar Hamlin was doing, and he made that really good play on defense, the pass breakup where he read it and came forward. It was, I believe they were playing some sort of robber coverage. I have to go back and double check it, but he read the quarterback's eyes and I got to stop again. You know why? Super chat. It's that time. Comment from Chris. Favorite play was Fromm to Stevenson, but close second was Sweeney, and that catch and staying on his feet for the first. Glad to see him on the field again. Yeah, good for Tommy Sweeney to keep his balance and maintain. Also on that play, Spencer Brown, I believe, had that pancake block on that play where he just ragdolled his man. So that was a beautiful thing as well. But yeah, Hamlin had, he was playing, the robber, came up, read the QB's eyes, made a beeline for that crosser across the middle, made good contact. We also saw him miss a tackle on the running back on the same play that Tyrell Adams missed that tackle on the running back. But I think overall, positive game for Damar Hamlin, positive game for Josh Thomas.
I'll say DW here asking about Jaquan Johnson.
That's what I want to get into next.
I think it's a fair assumption that if you saw guys like Jaquan Johnson, Justin Zimmer, guys like that get taken out of the game pretty quickly, that it's hard to assume that's not a positive thing. Yes. I don't think they would have started and got removed quickly unless it was because they didn't feel like they needed to see a lot. So it's not a absolute lock or guarantee, but it's not a bad thing. So both guys had other people play well later on in the game. Harrison Phillips played really well, so Zimmer didn't get a lot of reps, and Harrison Phillips played really well, so maybe that cancels out. Jaquan Johnson didn't play very much, and then both Josh Thomas and Damar Hamlin played pretty well. Maybe that cancels out, but I certainly think the initial thought is that's a good thing for both those guys.
Yeah, I would second that notion, and I'm glad we got the comment already on Jaquan Johnson because he's someone I really wanted to spend a bit of time on. I know oh, yes, good call. Hamlin did have a nice tackle in special teams. Also on a good coverage from the gunner position by Rashad Wildgoose, who we're going to get into a bit, where after we talk about the defense, we're going to talk about some special teams before we go into the offense there. Jaquan Johnson is very interesting. I mentioned him multiple times. The University of Miami is my favorite football team, so I was very, very, very well-versed with Jaquan Johnson at Miami. He was a captain of that team. He was actually somebody going into his senior year who was touted as like a day two prospect, but he's not the most athletic. We know his limits athletically. Every time we've seen him in the preseason, I've never thought he was a liability. I never thought he was bad. I don't think he's somebody that's going to be tremendous in the deep third of the field, but around the line of scrimmage, he is very solid. And John, I see your super chat. I'm going to actually, you know what? I can't violate the rules. I can't violate it. Another one from John. I appreciate you. John said, Buffalo will go as far as the pass rush. Josh is insane. Buffalo will score 500 plus. Ooh, Groot, Star, Ed, Jerry, plus reinforcements will be why we beat or lose to KC and Tampa Bay. I think you're almost spot on there. I think that's a pretty heady take. John's a smart guy. I expect nothing less from John.
Not crazy at all. I agree that the offense is going to be very, very good again. Even if it's not 500 plus, it's going to be a lot of points. And it's going to be a very good offense. Mm-hmm. The difference will be, can the defense step back up, stay healthy, get back to that 2018, 2019 level? Yeah. And if they can, with more pressure coming, then literally nothing is out of question.
1,000%. Great take there, Greg, and great comment there from John. But Jaquan Johnson, special teams contributor, but we've talked about the safety depth. I know you and Aaron have spoken about it on the Cover One Buffalo podcast. I've spoken about it multiple times here on Disguise Coverage, both by myself and when I've had Bruce on a couple of times, Bruce Nolan from the Bruce Exclusive. I think as of right now, Jaquan Johnson, especially with him being kind of pulled earlier, I think he solidified himself as the third safety. Who was the safety that came downfield hard and smacked the Detroit running back in the backfield?
99% of the play he's thinking of is Josh Thomas.
Yeah, it's Josh Thomas. If he's talking about the one, you're talking about the one like the first quarter or second
it's early,
quarter.
yeah. It just crumpled the running back backwards.
Yeah, it was on the pull from Detroit. Yeah, it was Josh Thomas. He's very physical, good around the line of scrimmage. Jaquan Johnson was really strong around the line of scrimmage. He had a couple plays where he took on some pulling tackles and pancaked one of them. He got driven back a little bit, but put him to the ground. He was flowing off of blocks and filling the hole. Good physical tackles, good in coverage. I like him around the line of scrimmage. I did in Miami. I thought he could find a role in the NFL. He's not going to be quite Hyde and Poyer level of interchangeable, but I thought he played very well and right now solidified himself as, especially with his special teams role, I think he solidified himself as a spot on this team and then safety number 3 as of right now.
Friend of the show over at the Mafia Sports Report, Devin Singletary showed why he deserves to be an RB1. I thought he looked slick and explosive. We'll get to that here on the offense. Played very well with backup O-lineman. Bobby Hart going to get the quarterback killed. He's got to go. Yeah, that's a common drumbeat in the comments tonight. We'll give him his appropriate billing here when we get to the offense.
That's fair. But overall, I like the performance from the safeties. Jaquan was really, really strong for me. Hamlin looked good. Thomas looked good. Even Tariq Thompson, his snaps were limited, but they brought him on a lot of those delayed safety blitzes and some stuff around the line where he succeeds. So that was good to see as well. So good safety play from the Bills, and nice to see because we don't have a ton of depth behind Hyde and Poyer and
Mike Lucas is the funny one.
That's super good.
I thought Bobby Hart, the right tackle, was bad. Wait till you see him play left tackle. It's way worse. It's so much worse.
Not good. We should have just talked about Bobby Hart.
Yeah, we should have let off with it. Don't worry, it's fine. He'll give plenty of content throughout the show.
Safety's good. Corners. Not so much.
Levi Wallace had a nice breakup in the
Very
end
good
zone.
read. Very good read and break, yeah.
Nick McLeod almost faked his way to a pick six.
Can't force it.
I respect it.
He's from Notre Dame. They're good at making things up sometimes, like girlfriends and stuff.
Pretending.
Yeah, hashtag tattoo.
I I don't know that I thought Dane Jackson looked great. He had two missed tackles that I noticed. Tried to do some ankle swipes, and then
which is weird because his physicality and coming up and
normally
making tackles is a hallmark.
Normally a good thing.
Yeah, very odd.
Rashad Wild Goose got roasted a couple times.
Cooked goose, not good.
Elijah Griffin got toasted in what could have been the game losing play.
Yeah,
on that slant route. So, it's. That is by far the toughest spot. Late in games, guys where you're not playing with a secondary that you have a ton of communication or history with. Those are tough spots to be in. They're very young players. We just referenced multiple 7th-round picks and undrafted free agents. It's not anything that I'm terribly concerned with, but I also think it speaks to the fact that we're probably keeping 5 corners. I don't know that any of those guys are making this roster. I think we're going to roll the dice so we can get them on practice squad, and that realistically it's, Trey, it's Levi, it's Taron Johnson, it's Dane Jackson, it's Saran Neal, and those are our corners right now. And honestly, if there's a spot, I understand people are probably going to say backup swing tackle, but I've seen enough to think that I think Spencer Brown's going to come along and we're going to be okay. If they're going to poke around and pick somebody up, corner's not crazy. Some depth after those top 3. If anything were to happen to Trey White, Levi Wallace, or Taron Johnson, I don't feel great at those spots. And I feel like Spencer Brown's more capable of stepping in than anybody else that we have at corner right now. So, this reinforced the concern that maybe our corner depth is a little lacking, and I don't know that Dane Jackson is the answer to any of those questions.
No, I think that's fair, and especially on a week that came after Asante Samuel Jr. looking great in practice against Keenan Allen, just to tug at my heartstrings. But yeah,
and Justin bringing up Saran is going to make this team from a special team standpoint.
Yeah, correct.
He's also not the answer at cornerback for anything significant.
No, I think I like the idea of Neal being kind of like the whole Buffalo nickel aspect, or a guy that you can Swiss Army knife and plug in, and he can do spot duty and he can give you meaningful snaps. I don't know if he's going to be that's funny. I don't know if he's going to be a significant, like, everyday starter at nickel or at the outside corner spot, but he gives you some flexibility. He gives you some versatility. I am comfortable with him, comfortable enough. But yeah, Goose got beat multiple times. He had the pass interference call.
Got trucked on.
Yeah, he on his first attempt at making a play. Yeah, just got trucked, which also was surprising because his aggressiveness and physicality has always shown up well. He's used to taking on bigger guys, both in the run game, in terms of making tackles and like setting the edge. So him getting trucked was very interesting. And yeah, not the deep ball that he got beat on. He got beat right at the line of scrimmage. He whiffed and
both him and Griffin. Both of them were just immediate.
Time.
They tried to get in a little bit of a jam, tried to get up there close, and just whoop and out.
Yep, not even getting a hand on guys. I like what you said about McLeod. I thought he was responsible in zone coverage. He also had I think the quarterback could have fitted in on the 2-point conversion, but McLeod's coverage wasn't terrible. He got pushed off a little bit, but he was still there to make a play and make it difficult. And regardless of, granted, he didn't make the interception, he made a very strong read and play on the ball on that pretend interception. He passed off number 1 deep, stopped and saw number 2 coming out and coming over to him and jumped the route, made a very good heady play. That was a very nice thing to see, but yeah, got to see more from the corners, not especially, again, there's not the only Bills corners under contract after this year are Tre'Davious White and Dane Jackson. And then technically, if you want to throw in like Wild Goose, McLeod, and Griffin, but that doesn't really count in my eyes right now. So it's definitely a position of interest. And part of the reason why you saw a lot of people clamoring for the Steven Nelsons of the world, or at one point the Richard Shermans of the world, to try and reinforce that corner depth a little. And yeah, I don't feel, I'm not down in the dumps and, oh man, this is terrible. But as of right now, I don't feel great with with what our corner depth is. This is a bet I've been fighting all year. John mentioning about who are Tampa Bay's corners. I'll wait. Pass rush over CB. Tampa Bay does have some good corners. Carlton Davis and that crew and they're also built for that defense in terms of speed and being able to play man and varying coverage. Tampa Bay
they do have phenomenal pass rush, and their front four is fantastic.
1,000%.
But it's a good complement, not necessarily just making up for the other.
Correct, 1,000%. And yeah, the secondary, good safety's good. Corners.
Is it time for me to talk about punters?
Yeah. Do you want to lead with Matt Hawk, who was really good?
Oh, it's phenomenal. I was very, very excited to be able to see, because, I was obviously the president of the Corey Prohaska's fan club, and I was a little bit hurt when they moved on from him. I kind of thought it was automatic that we were going to bring him back, but there were many frustrating times where he couldn't angle or do anything.
Yes.
All of the punts today, when the Bills punted, the Lions started at the 19, at the 15, at the 11, at the 26, and the 26 was after a 54-yard punt out of bounds, at the Detroit 15, every single time. Every single time inside the 20, and the only one that wasn't inside the 20 was a 54-yarder that he angled it out of bounds. It's unbelievable. Like, it was fantastic. His net average was 44 yards. They, as a total, averaged 1.7 yards per return. They had 7 total return yards on 4 kicks. So hang time inside the 20, exactly what you want. When you have an explosive offense that we're not going to have all that many games where we have 5 punts, to be honest.
Yeah.
And when he does that, he's going to be able to angle it there. That's going to be really encouraging. And then Tyler Bass, everything you could want in a preseason game. He striped a 50-yarder that hit the net hard and would have been good from 60 plus.
Yep.
Made all 4 of his kicks, made a game-winning field goal, literally a game-winning field goal at the end of the game. So, even if it's preseason, it doesn't really matter. That's real stress. That's real anxiety. That's real management of performance anxiety to be able to keep your level head and keep things there. I thought that, obviously I made some comments. Brandon Powell was obviously pressing and really wanted to make a play, and I don't blame him. And he didn't make a good decision on when he should have fair caught the ball and got crushed on the punt return. Not like a couple of people asked, was that big of a deal? Well, what if the guy puts his helmet on the ball instead of on his helmet? That's an easy way to muff or to get or to fumble the ball, and then taking the ball out of the end zone and getting tackled inside the 20. So, obviously I totally get it. The man's literally fighting for a paycheck. I don't fault him for trying to force it, but he did force it and it didn't look good. And then McKenzie looked great catching the ball, did what he was supposed to, and Stevenson did okay. Like, I thought he was fine. Looked solid, and then we'll get to them on the offense, but really strong night from special teams. Exceptional coverage, great kicking in both phases, everything you could want from a special team standpoint tonight. So Heath Farwell is going to be a very happy man.
Yeah, spot on. I don't really have much to add. I feel like we could move on already to the next, but I just wanted to give, nobody fumbled. That's an A+. Bass was, not only was he kicking with force, but he was dead center on like almost every kick, right down the middle, picture perfect, just really solid night from Bass. And Hawk it's such a small aspect of the game, but to me it's tremendously important. I hate being like past the 35 or 40 and then somebody kicks in, it's like a touchback. Or it goes out at like the opponent's like 45. I'm like, that was a net of like 20 yards.
15 yards.
That pisses, it just drives me nuts.
Well, one, it's great that already tonight we were going for it. Sean McDermott.
I love that
he went for it at the 28-yard line. Like, that was a ridiculous time to go for it. But he went for it like way in Bill's own territory.
Yep.
So obviously we're not going to be going for it in that midfield area. He knows with our offense. And then if you're close enough, he's got a bazooka of a kicker for Bass. So I'm not really worried about that piece of it. But it is nice that, hey, if you're in that the 30 to 40 area. You're not quite at the 40 yet. On the opposite side of it, that we now have a kicker that you can actually angle it, put it inside the 20, and have it matter. So that's a nice bonus to feel good about.
For sure. And you touched on it. Special teams coverage was good, as we spoke about briefly when we talking about Hamlin and Wild Goose. Some positives for Wild Goose.
Yeah, it was our own 26. Sean McDermott went for it at our own 26 tonight.
After a couple third and short non-conversions where we came up at like 4th and 1 and 4th and 2. Yeah, finally he was like, screw it, we're going for it. Reggie Gilliam, take a little fullback dive. Yeah, it was nice to see the mentality from McDermott, and nice to see the punting ability from Hawk and special teams coverage for
as far as I'm aware, Chris asking here, he actually pronounced it as Hawk, like the bird, like Hawk. It's pronounced as Hawk.
Correct. That's exactly what it is. Spelled super goofy and weird, but it's pronounced, like a hawk. Really good coverage on punt, on kick. I thought Hamlin flashed several times. We saw a nice couple plays from, I believe, Tyrell Adams on kick coverage. So sound special teams, which the Bills are known for. We know Sean McDermott wouldn't tolerate anything less than being sound in all three phases of the game, offense, defense, and special teams. And the only, I think, blemish on special teams was that Reed Ferguson didn't come up with that fumble. Very disappointing. Very disappointing for him. I know he was upset about it.
This is true. I'm frustrated. Screw it. This is preseason.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that was.
Exactly.
We need a freaking conversion here.
We're going for it. Yeah, that was at the point, too, at the game. I believe that was right after that, 16-18 play drive for Detroit, and I feel like he was just like, no, we need to stay on offense. Yeah, we're going for it. I don't care. Yeah. Very nice from Sean McDermott. Very nice from the special teams. And now
we have now entered the Bobby Hart portion of the evening.
Yikes. Not good. It was the same. It's funny because everything that happened here, the turnstile pass protection from Bobby Hart is literally what you and I saw at the open practice, where he was just getting beat by everyone left and right, like a Salvation Army drum, just beat nonstop. And yeah, he's a liability at this point. There's some other guys who also had some errors that we'll get into, but since everybody wants to make the Bobby Hart jokes and go on him, yeah, he played very poorly.
So besides the game back in 2017 where Tyron Smith went out and Chaz Green had to come in for the Cowboys, and Adrian Claiborne had 6 sacks in one game, it's the second worst tackle performance I can think of. Every play that I always tell people, I am a big advocate of the fantastic book, Take Your Eye Off the Ball. When I rewatch, I take my eye off the ball. When I rewatch games, I watch the line play. I'll watch again, and I'll watch the matchup secondary versus receivers. When I'm watching live, I watch it very much like a standard fan. I watch the ball. I watch what's going on with the action of the game. There were stretches where I started to just watch Bobby Hart. It was every play. He was just... I felt bad, and Greg Vorse, who many of you follow on Twitter, was saying, I don't even know how we can evaluate Jake Fromm, because it was so bad that I don't know how we can judge anything about Fromm. It was horrible. But yeah, it was one of the worst offensive tackle performances I've seen, to the point where Bean and McDermott aren't send a message guys. They're not spiteful or cruel people. I won't be shocked if they poke around for another offensive tackle and release him. Just as a camp body, and just hey, clearly he's not the guy. So I can't scroll back far enough in the chat. At no point should Josh Allen ever enter a football game when Bobby Hart's on the field. Ever. That should never happen. I'm fine if Josh Allen doesn't play a single snap in preseason anyways. Fromm
is QB1, so I'm fine with it anyway.
But at no point should Josh Allen ever touch a football field when Bobby Hart is in the game.
Yeah, just when you started with the at no point, I was thinking of the guy from Billy Madison who, at no point have you said anything.
At no point in your entire long, drawn out, rambling tirade did you ever get close to making what could be considered a salient point.
I give you no. I award you no points.
I award you no points. We are all
mercy.
dumber for having heard that, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I forgot the number. I thought that's what you're going for. I was like, oh man,
that was Bobby Hart today. Like that was Bobby Hart today. I award you no points. We are all dumber for having watched you, and may God have mercy on your soul.
It was bad, and thank you, Angus, for the super chat and the joke there comment. It sounds like nobody likes Hart's heart. Pun intended there. Well played. There were a couple stretches there for Fromm between Hart on the left and then Doyle on the right getting beat, where I was just like, oh God, Jake Fromm's going to get murked. Like he would get the ball in the shotgun and just have almost no time. Yeah, Bobby Hart, not good. Tommy Doyle, also not so good. Got beat.
I had a lot of people comment that to me about, hey, well, so there's a huge difference between a 6-year NFL veteran and a rookie in his first game action from the MAC that didn't play much this past season. So that combination, like that's totally different. That's totally different and totally fine.
Yes.
And at no point was Tommy Doyle in the plans to be in the game day active roster. He was always going to be kind of that 53rd guy who was the game day inactive. And there's reason he's an elite athlete that you can groom and grow into that. Bobby Hart is what he is, and what he is a horrible football player.
Correct. There's a much, much, much longer leash for Tommy Doyle. He's a later round pick, and he's a rookie, and
But believe me, Chris, I spent an entire day on Twitter the day of the signing trying to fight with people that, well, it's experience depth. Maybe it's not that bad. It was that bad. It really was. Like I regret ever saying anything even remotely neutral about Bobby Hart because it was that bad.
Yeah, it was awful. And I don't want anybody to think that Doyle's performance and Bobby Hart's should be put into the same category. But yeah, Doyle not so good as well. But again, there's more upside and hope with him. And I guess if we stick with the rookie aspect, Spencer Brown, we saw some comments. Oh, that's funny. The Uncle Jimbo says Greg spitting some hard truths here. You're not wrong. He's not wrong. It's not false. Spencer Brown, we've spoken about him. Well played, Rich. Well played. This interruption brought to you by Uncle Jumbo's. Uncle Jumbo's will be there for you when Bobby Hart is in the rotation.
I am taking this snapshot and sending it to the guys over at Uncle Jumbo's. They're going to love this.
I feel like we need to pose and do a smile with a thumbs up so that way I can snip it and send it to you later. That's exactly what it is.
This is fantastic.
That's great. Well done. Spencer Brown looked athletic. He looked mean. He looked nasty and advertised in some aspects. Much stronger in the run game than he was in the pass. I like the way he got to the second level, and his combination blocks I thought were good, especially in the run game. But there were a handful of snaps where he just got beat around the edge multiple times, real bad. But again, someone who he played at Northern Iowa. He played 8-man football in high school. He did not play last year. Again, someone with a much longer leash, potential, room to grow, and you saw some positive flashes. Nothing detrimental, but you can definitely see why he is a longer-term prospect and project than he is for, I don't know, some people maybe in Twitter like to say things like, oh, Spencer Brown is going to push Darrell Williams for the starting right tackle job, or maybe Darrell Williams should kick into guard and we'll start Spencer Brown at tackle. Nope. Not. I hope those people have backed off of those takes now. Thank you.
Yeah. You want to call it a 50-50 game for Spencer Brown, I'm fine with that. I think he had plenty of flashes. I think he showed the potential, the reason he was a day 2 pick, the athleticism, the mean finishing element. I loved, probably the majority of his run blocking. And honestly, I was disappointed in probably the majority of his pass blocking. Like he's just not technically refined yet. He doesn't know how to weaponize his athleticism,
which is expected.
Yeah, he's not prepared to utilize his elite athleticism yet from a pass set standpoint. And once he figures that out, maybe he will be really good. One, there's no guarantee he will, and two, he's not ready to immediately. Hopefully in my mind, hopefully by 2023, he's ready to do that. If it's a discussion in 2022, we'll deal with it then. I am under the impression Darrell Williams is our starting tackle for the next 2 years, and that Spencer Brown's development over those 2 years going into year 3 is why we will have options at that point. Tonight showed that it is not anytime soon.
1,000% spot on. And I was just even impressed that, well, I shouldn't say impressed, but no, I would say pleasantly pleased or surprised that he looked as good as he did in the run game. I thought he would be a project or even more raw in all aspects of the tackle game. To see that it was like, well, he did some really positive things in the run game, not so much in the pass. I was like, okay, that's still a win for him. Again, he's not somebody who the Bills did not draft him to plug and play him this year in 2021. And to your point, I don't even think it's really in 2022. I think 2023 is the game plan. You want depth until then, and a guy who can learn and grow and groom, and I think that's solid for Spencer Brown. So we went from Bobby Hart, who was terrible, to Tommy Doyle, who was a little less terrible, to Spencer Brown, who was a mixed bag. I want to go to someone who I thought had a really good game. I thought Cody Ford played well. Right?
He did.
Right?
Cody Ford looked good.
And he played
tonight.
The whole first half, so a large sample
looked
size.
Good. It was exciting. He's my number one note to go back, because again, I did not solely focus on line play the whole time. He's my number one note on my first rewatch is watch Cody Ford. I was very impressed.
I rewound a lot of plays to see Cody Ford specifically. He held up well in pass protection. He was moving his feet very well. He was using his hands. He was getting good hand placement inside. He didn't have lazy hands where he was getting lost or not making contact with his punches or getting to the outside of the shoulder pads. Good hand placement, good technique, strong hands. And again, he's coming off of a ACL tear not ACL tear. Yeah, MCL tear. Leg injury of some significance. MCL, ACL, one of the CLs.
It was MCL, but yeah, MCL. Still.
Not great. And he was moving very mobile. We heard how much he rehabbed all offseason and how good he looked in camp for someone coming off of an injury of that significance. And I thought he looked fluid and athletic, again, for the fact that he was, carrying a brace on one of his legs there.
I don't know that anyone's ever said fluid nor athletic when describing Cody Ford, so that's already a positive.
Exactly like that. I literally came away, I have it in my notes saying it for as much as he could be fluid or athletic, he was, and especially even more so coming off of the injury. Very good for him, very promising. And also with it coming at right guard, a position where he struggled at times in his career. So to see him get a good amount of snaps, again, he played the entire first half. He played against the ones for Detroit. And then what I also thought was encouraging is because he played well against the ones, but then I don't want to say dominated, but he was winning a heavy majority of his reps against the number twos for Detroit, which is a big thing.
Correct. And they have some good young defensive linemen. That Ashawn Robinson, a bunch of guys. They have some really good talent up front. So him playing well matters. That there's some talent on that Detroit defensive line. So I'm pleased. That's a great first step. Joe Marino was on with me last night for the Cover One Buffalo podcast and was talking about how we both noticed that they specifically moved him to right guard. That They didn't just keep Feliciano at right guard and move Ford back to left guard. That, hey, this is his best spot. This is the spot he's going to be most comfortable at. We're going to put him there because that's our best long-term investment. And I honestly think it's more so Feliciano and Botker at left guard for the competition. I think Ford is maybe even a slightly more solidified starter than Feliciano, although I think both of them are going to start and Botker's going to be the backup.
Yeah, I would second that notion. I think you're looking at the Feliciano Ford guard combo with Botker as like the swing guard type of thing to fill in. But really, Cody's somebody who, good comment there from Jason, the way the coaches were treating Ford made me think he needed work on his confidence and belief in himself. I am happy he played well today. Hopefully he can build on this.
They talked about his work with the mental health coach and with going through his approach to things. And some of the comments he made were confidence based, like that. I think some people assume that every pro athlete is just this crazy hyper competitive alpha mentality person, and it's just not everyone's wired that way.
There's a reason why being a sports psychologist is a legitimate profession.
Is a great one that I'm really hopeful that was a positive for Cody Ford and that we're going to see the benefits of it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's something that could be, oh, if we could hit on that Cody Ford pick and add some more stability to that offensive line going forward, knowing that we've got the pillars, knock on wood, ideally set with Dawkins and Williams, if we can add some more stability on that interior. I love Mitch Morse, but with his concussion history and then moving forward, I think that adds a bit of a wild cardy feel. Um, so really nice to see from Cody Ford. And what else do you have some thoughts on for the offensive line, Greg? I know Ron just asked in the comments, how did Ryan Bates look at center? I thought he looked fine. Like, I'm
Yes.
not ready to say like, oh yeah, let's make him the starter, but I thought he was very serviceable at worst.
Same, exact. I was, and I made that comment last night on the show. I'm glad that they're letting him focus on a position and not just
Yes,
this weird, hey, you can play all five
everywhere.
positions, and like, hey, let him be good at something. So I was pleased with that, and I thought he was fine. It was good. I actually thought the interior line was pretty solid overall, and I thought the tackle play was relatively poor overall. So that's we didn't have either of our. The Bills have two top end tackles who are both very very good and played the entire season last year. We need that to happen again. Like, there's really not much around that. We need both Dean Dawkins and Darrell Williams to be healthy and to play, and it kind of is what it is at this standpoint. So we'll kind of monitor where that goes. I think there's a point with Spencer Brown's development that maybe he's an acceptable Band-Aid, but I thought most of the interior line played pretty well and held up in how we wanted, because I actually, we'll get to it here in a moment, I thought there were some flashes in the run game.
Yeah, and I think those flashes came from some of the strength of the offensive line up front. I thought, to mention, just to hit home on that interior play, I thought Douglas also looked good, especially in the run game. He held his own. Good to see that depth there. And I like your point about the tackles. I think I mean, I'm a defense guy, and especially in the secondary, especially with the secondary, we've been talking about all offseason, like the drop off from Hyde and Poyer to the next level of safeties. I'm now starting to get those same, if not more, worrisome vibes for the drop off in tackle play from Dawkins and Darrell Williams to whoever takes over next. Like, I am a little worried if there is some scenario where one of them were to go down, because I don't think the depth is there given what we have now. But we did get several promising performances along the offensive line.
I like that there's a running joke in the chat now that it's insulting to turnstiles to compare them to Bobby Hart.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
Turnstiles like do a good job letting people onto the subway and things like that. It's.
Yeah, that's fair. They do serve a purpose, unlike Bobby Hart. I guess I don't want to pile on the guy. And also, Ron, to your comments there, yeah, I thought Douglas was all right in pass pro, but to your
Yeah,
point, I thought he was better, much better in the run game
probably a
than he
good one
was
from
pass pro.
Rod. Probably the poorest of the interior
Yeah,
players
that's
tonight.
fair, but not a liability. Not great, but not a liability, and good
Yeah.
enough or not. I wouldn't say good enough, but pretty well in the run game as that line did as a whole. Greg, and you want to jump into running backs now? I figure we can make that a little
Yeah.
segue there, because
Um,
someone look actually Breida looked good too, but Singletary was
Devin
doing a lot of
Singletary looked
things.
explosive.
Yeah,
Same idea that I don't know that anyone's ever said that about Cody Ford. I don't know that anyone's ever called Devin Singletary explosive. I was shocked. It like, oh, hey, look at that acceleration.
hmm
It was noticeable. He looked good. 8 carries for 42 yards. And they were legit like carries, getting good chunks of yards and averaging 5 yards a carry. He caught a wide open touchdown, but caught a touchdown. Looked nice and
hmm
was doing well. So obviously you expect a starting caliber running back in a preseason game to look good, but that was without Dawkins or Darrell Williams or Mitch Morse, and there weren't wide open holes everywhere. So, I thought that he did a nice job, broke a couple tackles. I thought Matt Breida looked solid.
hmm
I thought that he had a couple times where his speed showed. I thought he looked natural catching the ball. And the
hmm
same thing, I thought Antonio Williams looked solid. I didn't think either of them gave one or the other a leg up. I thought Matt Breida already had a head start going into the game. I think he
hmm
maintained that. I don't think he looked fantastic, but I also don't think that Antonio Williams did anything to threaten his role. And that, he does run hard, but he also doesn't really make anybody miss. And I thought
hmm
that's what you saw tonight. That, he does break through a tackle here and there, but ultimately most guys get him down, and his 7 carries for 15 yards, I think, showed that.
Yeah.
Um, looked okay out of the backfield catching the ball. Both of them did. But I would say that still looks pretty definitively as Motor and Moss at the top, Breida mixing in here and there with some speed, and then Williams probably on the practice squad. And I don't feel terribly different about that after the game.
Yeah, second that notion. Interesting from the game plan from the Bills coming out with, I believe, 5 straight running plays, including the holding call that called back the first run for
Yeah, a
Singletary.
nice one.
Yep. Prior to that final drive, led by QB1 Jake Fromm, the Bills ran the ball 29 times for 114 yards, as opposed to only passing it 21 times for 90 yards. So a ratio that we have come nowhere close to seeing last year, came nowhere close to seeing last year with the Bills. And we probably won't come regular season, but it was interesting to see that the Bills with this grouping really wanted to get the running game going and see what they could do and see what they could get. And maybe it was also a function of trying to just get everybody into the rhythm and, get everybody acclimated to a real NFL game again. But it was nice to see. I think the offensive line held well for the entire game in the run, especially towards the beginning when they opened up a lot of stuff for Devin Singletary. And it was really good to see Singletary do Devin Singletary things, the short yard quickness and burst, the finishing, the ability to get low and get positive yardage a significant amount of time. The burst that he showed on the touchdown, where he just exploded out of his stance and took off on the flare for the touchdown, was really a positive thing to see. And then, exactly to your point, I know a lot of people were clamoring for Antonio Williams to get more snaps and be a guy to make this team. I don't think he did anything tonight that would cause him to leapfrog Matt Breida in any way, shape, or form. Not because Breida had an amazing game, but I don't think Breida looked bad at all. I think Breida showed what he can do in some flashes. Didn't look great, but Antonio Williams, he did not look like the guy that is going to all of a sudden supplant one of them or be the number 2 running back on this team. And I granted the fumble is in there as well, but I don't want to give him a pass because he got the stinger, and I think that maybe caused the ball to come loose a little bit. But I don't think he did anything to kind of throw anything into the fire and shake things up at all.
And I do think Chris's question here, do you think there's a reason he only 2 pass attempts? I think Richard's pretty spot on that. I think that it was very intentional that they wanted to run the ball.
Yes.
And that they kind of know what they have with Trubisky. I don't think there's a need to see like, can he move the ball here? There, they know he's a functional quarterback. He's had plenty of moments in practice and in the scrimmage. So I think they feel pretty comfortable with that. But they want to see, I brought that up last night with Joe again, that I wanted to see the linebackers and the running backs play because you can't really see that in practice and in scrimmages because they don't take people to the ground. So you want to see, can you really break tackles? Would you have gotten through there? Hey, it looks like you broke away, but did you really break away, or was someone have taken you down? So those kind of things there, I think are a big piece of it. And I thought we saw that tonight, where again, as far as anybody, not that Singletary needed any momentum to make the team, but he's the only one who really did. I thought that tonight was the closest we've seen Reggie Gilliam to actually playing fullback. 2 short yardage carries in there in special teams. I don't know that I think he's likely to make the roster, but maybe he pushes Tommy Sweeney for a role. Maybe he's technically the 4th tight end, 4th, 5th running back spot. I don't know. I don't know that I had him in my roster projection just because of the depth at defensive line and the depth at wide receiver. But with his play on special teams, his ability to play fullback if needed and to play tight end if needed, I think that's pretty much the gist of it. Justin here asking, that Taiwan Jones was out there stretching with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Deion Dawkins before the game. So if you need an indicator of whether he's a lock, he was literally next to Josh Allen when they were stretching, getting ready for the game beforehand. So I'm going to take that as they didn't need to see anything from Taiwan Jones. So I'm going to assume that he's a lock.
Yeah, I would second that notion as well. And I think starting to transition to, you mentioned the Tommy Sweeneys of the world. Let's start to transition to, I guess, some of the weaponry pieces. We can kind of talk about wide receivers and tight ends.
Dawson Knox caught 100% of the balls that went to him.
That he did. That was a really nice.
It was a nice catch.
It was a nice catch. It was a good route, athletic. He exploded.
Got hit afterwards and didn't drop it.
Yep. Nope. And a really good throw from Trubisky on that one. Fitted in perfectly with a defender close to Knox. But I wanted to see a little more from Quentin Morris. I liked him at the open practice. I want to see a little more. That's my only regret when it comes to the tight end performances tonight. I wanted to see more Quentin Morris, but I think you saw, I mean, granted it was small, but good things from Dawson Knox and very positive performance from Tommy Sweeney, who always seems to just, Tommy Sweeney doesn't blow anyone away, but he always just seems to put in like a solid performance. He's always giving you like a 6.5 out of 10, like consistently.
Yep. It's many of others have described him that way. He's solid. He's not special. He's not a special athlete. He's not going to make a ton of big time, amazing plays, but he's solid and is a solid, good player. And Matthew, I understand why people think that he's no more of a waste of a roster spot than Reed Ferguson or Tyler Bass or special teams is a part of the game and somebody's got to play it, and he's way better at it than most other people. Like, that's just how football works. I wish we didn't have to have a long snapper as a 53rd position, but we do because that's part of football. And so is having a gunner, and he's way better at it than the other cornerbacks and safeties that we have. It just is.
1,000%. It's a very special teams is a super underrated aspect of the game. I mean, it's a reason why Matthew Slater is known in New England because of how much of an ace he is on special teams.
Or that people are going to make a crazy case next spring about this is the year for Steve Tasker to go in the Pro Bowl.
Yep, there you go. It's an important aspect of the game. It's and those gunners and those special teams guys, are very important. So I don't think it's a wasteful roster spot at all.
I don't know that I agree with Ronald, but it's not crazy. I thought Stevenson looked nice. He's fast. He brings an element that we don't have on this team. He's fast. We don't have a ton of just natural raw speed. We have a bunch of really good quick guys who, like Isaiah McKenzie's quick. He's not that fast. Stephon Diggs is quick. He's not that fast. Cole Beasley's quick. He's not that fast. Emmanuel Sanders is quick. He's not that fast. Marcus Stevens is fast. that go route at the end of the game, they did not want to let him get behind him, and he did anyways. And you saw some of the footwork on the kick returns. Dude's fast.
It was that go route on the fourth down was him he made a little move and got a little space, and then it was just like, okay, I'm way faster than you, goodbye, and took off. And then he also had later on that drive,
the safety couldn't get there either.
Correct. No. And really good throw from Fromm. And also nice to see Fromm rebound from missing. Well, we'll get to the QBs in a minute. But Stevenson also had a nice catch on the slant route later in that drive where he came off, hesitated, sold up field, and then broke inside really nice. His route running was decently impressive as well. I liked what Stevenson brought. I don't know if it's a guarantee that he makes the team. I think with Hodgins getting banged up a little bit, I think that increases the odds of maybe Stevenson making this team if Hodgins can't go and move forward. I really wanted to see more from Isaiah Hodgins. I really, really did. And that was disappointing to me in the wide receiver game as well. But overall, I think a position grouping, I mean, again, Bills only had 21 passes prior to that final drive. They were 15 to 21 for 90 yards. So this isn't a game where we're going to look back and be like, okay, there was a ton of tape and sample from the wide receivers, which I guess is kind of something I did wish we could have seen a little more, as the comment that Chris just put in there, where was Jay Kumaro? He played on the first couple of series. He also got some special team snaps and then was off the field once McKenzie and them came through. But this is a position grouping that I think going into training camp, it's a battle that we wanted to see. We knew the top four of Diggs, Beasley, Sanders, and Davis. And then from then on, we thought it was going to be a lot of open competition, but I don't know how much we got to see tonight to kind of push anything in that direction of who we think is going to make the team now.
Yeah, there's plenty more we need to see. We need to see some Jake Kumaro action. We need to see more from Isaiah Hodgins. I do think that top five seems pretty firm. Obviously, Diggs, Beasley, Sanders, Davis, McKenzie. I think that seems rock solid. McKenzie pretty clearly is the leader for the return jobs. We've seen Stevenson muff a couple punts and drop a couple that he still needs work there. So but I will say, I think there's a chance that if they keep 7, I think Stevenson could beat out Hodgins. And I think there's a non-zero chance that Stevenson could move back ahead of Kumaro, or that Kumaro could be the guy that's traded at the deadline that, Green Bay offers something that they send it back.
That's fair. he threw a wrench into the whole thing. I think a lot of people were making the whole like, oh, Kumaro could make this team, and like weren't super serious. And then after the practice reports and everything, now he's thrown a wrench completely into that. I don't want to say bottom tier of the wide receiver grouping, but the lower end of the grouping in terms of who's going to make this team. And oh, I'm still intrigued. I want to see more of Stevenson because you saw some of the speed on the kick returns, but nothing like tremendous. But I was more impressed with Marcus Stevenson, the receiver, than I was Marcus Stevenson, the returner, which was the opposite really of what I thought from the college film. Like I thought his wide receiver game showed some potential, but I thought he was a much more solid returner than he was receiver. I came away from this game thinking he's got more receiver upside than he does returning upside.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that I anticipated that, but seemed more ready than what I was expecting. And I think he's in the conversation. I don't know that he's better than 50-50, but I think he's in the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. What else? You got anything else on the weaponry aspect? Tight ends, receivers, anybody
No,
that
I
stood out to
think
you? We got some comments for some Jacob Hollister talk. I know Hollister covered the fumble from Antonio Williams, which was nice, and he had that one catch, but he didn't really
not a
do
ton else, but they
much.
also didn't. He's not a run blocking maven, and
Correct.
they didn't throw the ball that much, so you kind of not really his forte. Same
Yeah,
idea, like Isaiah McKenzie didn't really have a lot of action in the passing
very
game,
true.
but I'm not concerned about that either.
Very
So
true.
no, I thought they were solid, but nothing special. No, I
I
don't know
liked
that anybody earned a roster spot, and I think
oh, good
that
point.
um, a couple people maybe got a little +1, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, I second that. And I did like it was small, but Lance Lenore, I liked his blocking downfield on
Yeah,
some runs, and he had when Fromm started just doing those outs to the right side of
good
the
field
field.
awareness.
Yep. Lenore had a really good route on that out that he caught from Jake Fromm. He got to the top of the stem and snapped it off really quick, and it was straight line and fluid, and he didn't round it out, and he got separation and gave a nice, made himself really available to Fromm. So that was, again, one small thing, but I thought that was a cool thing to see overall from this grouping. And also him, rocking that legendary Thad Lewis #9 is also something that's going to endear him
Always.
to Bills fans. And now we move on to the sexiest position grouping in all of football, the quarterbacks. We had performances from Mitchell Trubisky, from Davis Webb, and Jake Fromm, who led a game-winning drive for the Bills. What are your thoughts? So, we've had a lot of people in the chat here talking about Davis Webb as QB #2. How come, Trubisky only threw 2 passes? And then, Fromm is always some sort of polarizing figure for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some QBs.
Yeah, I don't know that again, similar to some other comments, I don't know that anybody really changed their roster status after this game. Davis Webb looks like somebody that when he has time can run an NFL offense and can do okay. He does not like to be pressured and backpedaled like crazy and had 2 kind of ugly
Like
intentional grounding,
throwaways
yeah,
too. Yeah.
intentional grounding penalties. When Ron said that, maybe Fromm impressed him a little bit, he stood in there, knowing that the pressure was coming. And that throw to Stevenson was a big time throw. I don't know that much of anything else he did was super impressive. Those first 2 throws were good rhythm throws. He started to think 2 or 3. And the first couple that he hit were solid rhythm throws. He knew where to go, but ultimately, I don't know that he did anything special. I just don't think there's much of a path for a third quarterback on this roster, and I get it that tonight Trubisky only threw twice. It was only for 10 yards. They know what they have with him. He's perfectly fine. He's a better backup than Matt Barkley was. He's going to be good. He'll be fine. I think it's rock solid that they're keeping 2 quarterbacks. I don't think there's much of a chance that they're keeping 3. I think they know they can get Davis Webb back on the practice squad, and I think there's a decent chance they can get Fromm back if they want him, or a non-zero chance maybe they trade him at the cutdown day because maybe John Gruden will give you a draft pick for a quarterback. I don't know.
Nice, well played. Yeah, spot on. I don't think we're gonna see we don't need to see Mitchell Trubisky showcased in the preseason. Again, they know what they have in him. We should know what we have in him. He was a guy who led the Bears to multiple playoff spots, but he's not the most consistent QB. There's a reason he's not a starter, but he's more than a serviceable backup, and he's going to be your QB number 2. I think that's exactly what we're looking at. Exactly your point, I think the path to keeping a third QB is tough. There's a lot of positions like that. I think it's really going to come down to the special teams aspect. Like if Isaiah McKenzie holds down the kick returning duties, and then we can kind of have 3 spots in one, meaning McKenzie is a serviceable receiver. He's also your kick returner. He's also your punt returner. It's kind of like 3 positions in one. That opens up the opportunity for, I don't know if we're keeping an extra defensive end or defensive tackle or running back or QB or receiver. There's all these spots to pick and choose from. Quarterback, I think, is in that mix, but I think it's the least likely of, there's been the talks of, do we keep 7 defensive ends? Do we keep 7 wide receivers? All these things, so on and so forth. I think those outlying possibilities have a higher probability than us keeping a third QB, whether it's Davis Webb or Jake Fromm. As much as I don't hate on Fromm, I make the Fromm QB1 jokes, and I recognize his limitations. I think he's a serviceable QB in some aspects, and I liked him at Georgia. I think we saw some glimpses, but I don't think he's somebody that it's like, well, we got to keep him on this roster. And I also don't think, to your point, he's somebody who, if we release, well, we're not going to be able to get him back on the practice squad. No, I think you'd be able to bring him back. And what's funny, but one of my big takeaways from Davis Webb, because they mentioned, he wants to be a coach and this and that. We know how much he's helped Josh Allen. You can tell that when he plays like almost like a guy who's like gonna be a coach. Like, he doesn't have the talent and the processing ability, but he makes some smart decisions.
He knows where to go. He knows what to do with the ball.
And he can coordinate others to do other things, but he's not going to be the one out there to do it. Like, I just watched him running for one of those first downs, and I was like, coach. It just clicked, and it just makes sense. But it was nice to see him orchestrate a nice touchdown drive and show some mobility and some speed. And it was cool to see, the Bills have a game-winning drive from a QB and have some play that wasn't just terrible and awful and made you go like, well, the starters are out, so our play is going to be atrocious.
Yeah, and he made the big play when it mattered, and toxic differential.
I was going to say, it also helps your toxic differential as well.
He hit the toxic differential. He did, and it was. There weren't a lot of big plays in this game, but he hit 42-yarder to Marcus Stevenson on a game-winning drive when the rest of the team was trying not to give up a big play. It's hard to...
Especially after he missed an open guy right before that. It could have been easy to be like, well, that was the chance, and he blew it. He came right back and made a play 3 plays later on a similar route and dropped it in the bucket. So really cool for Jake Fromm. And also, it was mentioned a ton during the broadcast, but dude hasn't played football in a very long time, hasn't played against anybody else other than the Bills practice guys, and had to stay in solitary confinement last year because he was the COVID QB, like all these things. So good for him. And this is going to sound terrible, I didn't want Duke to catch that one from Fromm. I also didn't want him to catch that one out of bounds on the sideline, because I did not want to see everyone come out of the woodwork to tell me how Duke Williams is a wide receiver 1 and needs to make this.
Did you see that toe drag swag?
Did you see him make that play? Who else is making that play? Stephon Diggs couldn't make that play. Duke is a wide receiver 1. Did you see that block he made in the CFL?
So the 2 plays where Duke Williams showed up tonight are exact descriptions of Duke Williams. He made a really impressive catch, but couldn't have the body control to get his toes down. And then he roasted his guy, and Jake Fromm threw it to where a receiver is supposed to be. How fast an actual NFL receiver would be to get there, because he threw it to where that guy would be, but Duke Williams was like 5 yards behind where that was, and it looked like a Jake Fromm overthrow, and really Jake Fromm was just used to throwing to NFL receivers, and instead that one was Duke Williams.
And it's a funny little juxtaposition there. If you look at the throw to Duke, I don't know if he was supposed to be, I have to go back and watch it again, if he was supposed to be a little more outside in his stem because of where the ball placement was, and he also didn't track it. The throw to Marcus Stevenson was a little more inside. Stevenson tracked it and adjusted to the ball in midair and came and met the ball. It wasn't just like, it was a good throw from Fromm, but Stevenson adjusted and made the play versus Duke not so much. So it's also a very little interesting aspect. Yeah, so exactly, Griff. So what I'm saying, Duke Williams, the tight end.
Obviously.
Spot on.
Tight end
You
one.
nailed it.
Tight end.
You know what? Don't do that because people are gonna be like, that's gonna be the new thing, and I don't want.
Don't worry.
That trending.
Zach Ertz is still the deal's being hammered out.
Oh yeah, of course. Zach Ertz to Buffalo. There would be. I don't even want it to get that train started either. I have nothing left for that. What else? Any other thoughts that you want to drive home? Anything that tickles your fancy?
I liked it that McDermott was in regular season form already getting mad, or I could feel his blood pressure going up with each penalty flag. I like that he was already in full regular season mode with the timeout usage, even late in the half, even late in the game. It didn't matter. He was still running situations, going for it on fourth down. So I love to see that. I love to see how excited the team was on the sideline, and I love that nobody got hurt. And those are the biggest things. We made it through another week of training camp and a preseason game with no major injuries. That's the big takeaway here. So obviously excited that we were able to come away with a win, just because that's more fun, and looking forward to the next game.
Yeah, it was good times. It was nice to see nobody pick up any significant knocks. I'm hoping, Isaiah Hodgins isn't significantly hurt. Nice to see him make a play, it sucks to see him make a play and then get hurt right after it. So it was a knee injury. We'll see what comes from him. But other than that, yeah, Williams with the stinger, but he was solid after and came back, and yeah, no injuries or significant or anything that we know of.
You want to hear a secret?
Sure.
I'm pretty sure Antonio Williams wasn't hurt. He just was embarrassed. He fumbled.
That's fair.
Man! Oh, my shoulder! Oh, dude! I would have totally hold on to that ball if I didn't get this stinger. You guys see the stinger I got here? Is the stinger?
No,
Check it out. Oh man! I totally would have not fumbled that ball.
We got nothing here for you, Antonio. You look great. Nah, man, it you see this?
Oh,
my arm doesn't normally do this.
It's totally numb.
I can't feel it. Does anybody else see a really bright light? Mama, I'm coming. No. But yeah, nice to see that and some standout performances. I think the biggest for me, I think we saw some really positive things from the rookies, especially, Rousseau. And I know Epinesa is not a rookie, but it's basically really his first,
with the body transformation, basically.
Almost. I really like what we saw from Rousseau. I love what we saw from AJ Epinesa. I thought there were some positive flashes for Spencer Brown and some of the other later round picks. I liked some things that we saw from Damar Hamlin. But the pass rush, the front four is my biggest takeaway. The defensive line looked good in rotation. We saw a lot of strong things, and football is back, man. We've said it that, once training camp starts, it's almost like things are officially starting, and here we are. We've got real Bills football now every week, minus the week that is after the preseason and then before we start. But we really got Bills football every week from here on out, and this could be the start of something special. We got a good team with some positive things on our hands, and I'm pretty excited. The fact that I'm still excited right now and still want to keep talking about the Bills, considering it's almost midnight and I'm exhausted from the week, I think really says a lot.
It does.
I
had a blast. Thank you for inviting me on.
No, thank you. It was an honor to host this post game here. Something that is usually bestowed upon yourself and Aaron on the Cover One Buffalo podcast. And, there isn't anybody else that I would have wanted to ride with. So thank you very much for joining me. And everybody should know at this point, but just in case people live under a rock, Greg, why don't you tell them where they can find you and all that you do?
You can come find me at Greg Tompsett, having fun on the Cover One Buffalo podcast, having fun over on the Cover One Fantasy Show, and all the time on the tweeters or in the Cover One Premium Slack channel. So come have fun with us. Check out the stuff on cover1.net. Already post-game recaps going. Rob Quinn, Kyle Salagi, just doing killer jobs. Come over, check out everything we got going on. We just actually made a new addition to the Cover One Draft Show. So just good people all around. Come on, check over all the good stuff we have going on.
Oh yeah, nice. I've said it multiple times throughout the tenure here on the show. I don't think there's anybody that is better when it comes to Bills coverage than the team at Cover One and just NFL coverage in general. We hit on all cylinders pretty much every day of the week at all hours of the day. So you're not going to find anything better. And thank you very much for joining me, Greg. I, of course, am your regular host here on Disguise Coverage, Mr. Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT. Please rate and review and subscribe to the show and to Cover One as a whole. Drop a like on your way out. I say it every week. I know it's corny and stupid, but a simple thing like
Helps
a like
us a
goes a
lot.
long, helps us a lot. It goes a long way towards helping us trend and getting us in front of more eyes, which, is the ultimate goal for what we're doing. Check out Underdog Fantasy that Greg talked about in the beginning. We're going to continue to plug that on this show and throughout Cover One, especially on the Cover One Fantasy Show, which will be we'll have another episode of that this weekend as we start to get things rolling with fantasy football. And my life slowly descends into madness because I love fantasy and also hate it at the same time, and it's arguably the bane of my existence. But that is this episode of Disguise Coverage, a special Bills post-game episode going over the first preseason game of the 2021 season, the first regular, real football action for the Buffalo Bills in 2021. As always, thank you very much to everyone who rode with us live on the episode. The engagement was tremendous. I wish we could have. I pride myself on getting to almost, if not all, comments and questions and everything that hits the chat, and it was just wild tonight with how much excitement and energy there was as expected. So apologies for anyone's question or comment that we didn't get to, but thank you guys so much for riding with us. If you're watching or listening later, thank you very much for your listen, your watch, your download, whatever. Every single ounce of support is tremendously appreciated. Thank you very much to everybody who dropped the super chats tonight. You guys were awesome, especially the ones who dropped them purposefully to interrupt us, but we'll take it. And thank you so much. Thank you very much to Mr. Greg Tompsett, who is a gem. Thank you for joining me here and making this awesome and special. And go Bills. And I'll see you next week.
Go Bills.